Hey everybody, Bill in Virginia, and welcome back to my end scale. Today, what I'm going to be doing is still working on the backdrop, but doing a different aspect to it. I want to blend in the mountain to the backdrop. And on the backdrop, you followed my other videos. I've got this 1-inch foam filler piece, and then about a quarter to, actually about a ½ inch on the mountains, just from the way I build it, that I need to fill. So for this particular area, since I've got a exposed cliff face going right up to the backdrop, I'm going to be adding Sculptamold to part of that to kind of build it out just a little to make it look like it's a continuation before it kind of curves in and around on the hillside. So it's not much for Sculptamold to bite into without having fear of it falling off. So what I've done so far is I've come in and I've added drywall screws about every 3 to 4 inches along the 1-inch filler piece. This way I can put on Sculptamold. It will go around those screws and the screw heads will hold it in. They're at different angles. I'm not going to have to worry about the Sculptamold coming off. It's lightweight, so I can move it. It's not going to be damaged. And I can get it where it will come right up to the existing scenery. Then I will be using a variety of different techniques to blend it in. Again, ground cover, different things like that, so that I can have a reasonably smooth transition between the two. And again, fill in the gap. Also then make it where I can transition it and add scenery and trees and other things to blend into the backdrop piece. So that's what I'm going to be doing today on this video. So it's Sunday afternoon, and I've spent about, really 15 minutes, and I put Sculptamold in on the backdrop side of this particular scene. So I've still got a lot of work to do on it. You hear me say that a lot, because I do. But I'm going to let this dry. Then I'm going to come back with a very little bit of thick plaster, just to kind of put it into a few areas where I can do a little bit of carving. But I'll actually do the carving off scene so that I'm not making a mess. And one thing that I really like about Sculptamold is this part of it just doesn't stick. So it's very firm where I've got it. I've got it pressed up against the scene, but this I can easily take off. It matches up to the scene, the scenery that I've already got in place. So I'll be able to weather it really well. I will do a variety of foam type scenes, again, across the seams on the top. Some trees, some brush, do a little carving and some painting in these areas. I will add vegetation and the three-dimensional stuff up along here to kind of blend this into the backdrop piece and trees down in front. But I think this is going to work out well. Right now I'm just going to let this dry so that the Sculptamold sets up quite a bit more than what it is. And then I'll come back in and take this off. I will paint this particular area probably kind of the darker green just to kind of hide it, blend it in. Do some carving in here. Again, add some stiff plaster to do a little bit of carving down below. And I can start doing the scenery work on this piece. That'll be the next. Well, slight change in plans. As the Sculptamold dried and I started to work it a little bit with my fingers before I took it off, I decided, you know what, I don't need to put the plaster on for this small piece. So here it is. It's still wet. I came back in with the stain varnish that I was using on the rest of the layout. Got it colored up. Did everything here. The top part's going to be covered in grass. Seams are still going to be hidden. Put vegetation, but I'm ready to put it back onto the layout. And then just let the sculpt mold dry. I want it to get fairly hard before I start doing any additional scenic work. So it's still mid-Sunday afternoon. Probably it will be at least later this evening before I do anything. I want the sculpt mold to dry for a couple of hours, especially on some of these thin edges here. Want it to get pretty dry so it does not kind of flake off if it gets bumped, but time to put it back on the layout and just see how it looks overall. First batch of scenery is, I wouldn't call it done, but started. So I've got the upper seam hidden using ground cover, actually from an old Woodland Scenics kit that I had. I put it on, glued it onto the backdrop piece, let it overhang the existing piece just a little bit, saturated the new, or the part on the backdrop with white glue. Left the other a little bit dry, just a few drops of dilute white glue to kind of help set and grab the scenic material I put on it. I'm going to let it sit there, and it will take the shape then of the scenery that's underneath. And once it's dry, I'll come back and peel it up carefully, because there'll be a few spots that'll stick, but not many. And then I can take the backdrop off again. I can take it over to the workbench, and then I can start to add trees down at the base, as well as additional ground cover, and then start to hide it along the edge as it's going up. So that's going to be a variety of full three-dimensional trees right down at the base, and then kind of going up to some of the 3D glued-on foliage to the backdrop to kind of give it that illusion of three-dimensional trees kind of heading up what, it'd probably be a gully or, something like that on the other side of that bluff a little bit to the left. And then I can start doing the rest of the stuff. And I've just kind of laid out some ground material. Nothing's glued in place yet. Just kind of start getting a start and thinking about what I want to do down there. But making progress. I think this is going to turn out okay. And it is still easy to get off. Adding the sculpt mold really did not add a whole lot of weight to it, just very, very light. So all in all, it's working out for me. Making progress. So let this dry overnight. I got some trees on it. Ground cover's in pretty good shape. Everything is firm. Started putting in this to kind of do the transition between the bluff and then the backdrop. I'll be starting to put in some of the three-dimensional aspects, painting the white glue behind these trees just to add in, again, more texture as I go. I'm still going to have to wait on some polyfiber before I finish this piece. So this is going to be about it for what I'm going to do on this one, at least for a while here. I'll see what else I can do with it, but it's coming along nice. I'm happy with the result. And I've got another backdrop project finished. I got my building flats today. The Postal Service delivered. And this was one of the end scale, part of a set that I got. I also got an HO scale set, exactly the same buildings for when I do the HO. But I chose this one. Excuse me. It is fairly low, so it doesn't go up and over to the back. I could hide the edges of it using some trees, and I cut off about a ½ an inch where a dock was, just to kind of set it down so that it looks like it's up and over a hill a little bit, where the roads can kind of disappear and go down. So I glued it on using white glue, let it set for a while. I'm happy. I might add a little bit more of a tree just on the left corner, just kind of hide a little bit more of it. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with that too. That looks pretty good. So I'm still working on the other backdrop. I've got a lot of the ground cover in near the seam. I'm starting to make trees that are going to go in there. And that will be the next piece that I'll show is just more or less a finished product on this. I've just got to plant some grass up along between the track and that brush line, just like I did right in here. So that'll keep me out of mischief for a while. Well, I've got the majority of the backdrops done. Still have some clouds to do. but just kind of a walk along the layout, kind of showing the backdrops. You can see the seam. So the most recent piece, I did most of the finish work on it today. So excuse the jittery camera. I've only had a couple of cups of coffee today, not enough to calm my nerves, but I got it pretty well done. And bring it up higher here and keep my shadow out of the way. That brings it up. So I still got to put a little bit of a farm scene in at the top. I got to find some real small pictures of a farmhouse and a barn that I'll put up there. Got to practice on some scrap pieces to put, get a technique down to do some clouds. But I got it pretty well done here. So I think it's time to run some trains. But actually first I'm going to show what Santa brought me on the HO scale layout. So before I run some trains on the N scale, here's a couple of Pennsylvania Railroad trailers that I got off eBay. I consider it for Christmas. Some nice looking Pennsylvania. I was able to get rid of the Sioux Line trailers that I had sitting there for a long period of time. So that's one thing for the HO scale layout. Next things I got are three nice Pennsylvania engines. First one is a Stewart Hobbies, HO scale obviously, Baldwin VO1000, nice little switch engine. The next one that I've got here is a Fairbanks Morse H16-44. You notice it doesn't have couplers yet. I had to order some of those. It didn't come with it in the box. It had everything else. Pretty much a brand new engine. Doesn't look like it's ever been run. Next one that I got was a Walthers Fairbanks Morse, an H10-44 diesel. This one had been run a little bit. The only thing it had was some of the hand railings were loose. A very, very small application of glue got those put back in, and all three of them run really nice. I will show them moving just a little bit so you get a sense of that on this layout before I run back over to the N scale and run some trains through the new backdrop scenery on the full back end of that area. So just one last little segment for the video post today. Here's an overview of my HO scale, my Henrico shops layout, as I call it. Pennsylvania, early mid 1950s ish. Switching layout. 100% switching, a little staging yard off of that end of the layout, but this is just to run trains, run cars, make up, break up, and just have some fun. Where the end scale layout is, sit back, enjoy, rail fan, a little bit of switching, make up some trains, and just run and enjoy. I call my end scale layout the pandemic layout. If you followed, I started this in April of 2020. So this layout is only about 9 months old right now. Still got work to do on it, but this is what's kept me busy in lieu of a lot of work travel this past year. So all in all, we've got a great hobby. If you haven't started a layout, I encourage you to do so. Doesn't have to be big. My two layouts, 4 by 16 feet for the HO scale, it comes apart in the middle. I can rearrange it into a different configuration if I want. The end scale, 3 by 15, I'm utilizing one stall in a 2-stall garage. Now, right now you can see the HO scale is over that 2-stall, but it's all on casters. Everything is portable in my garage, so that I can move things and I can still get a car in if I want. Garages are meant for toys, not necessarily vehicles. That's just my personal opinion on it. But again, I encourage you, if you've not started, start. You're going to have a blast. You experiment, you make it, it's your own. Be creative and just have fun with it. So that's it for this video. Next week I go back to work, so I will not be posting as often as I have the past couple of weeks, but keep having fun with your layouts.